And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 47. Well, that's an interesting number to have on a day like today. 47. Who was number 47 on the Bruins? Who was the I got it.
Was it Evan?
It was Torrey Krug.
Oh, right, yeah.
Remember him?
I do.
Oh, the Bruins could have used him a little bit. Anyways, this is Evan Marinofski. That's Conor Ryan of Boston Sports Journal. Connor, how we doing?
Evan, I'm alive. How you doing?
Has anything happened in the past 24 hours that's even important at all? Interesting? I mean, I don't think anything's happened. The Bruins haven't even played, have they?
I mean, I think there's a new Eichel trade rumor, so maybe we'll talk about that. But
yes.
No, we're not. No, we're not doing this. No, but yeah, it is based on the reaction we've got from Twitter and just the general, I think, hive mind of Bruins fans. I don't think a lot of people doing that well. I think it's very, very bleak out there.
It's code red. It is very code red.
DEFCON 5.
Someone DM'd me this morning about an Eichel thing and was like, actually, I wouldn't be opposed. And I'm like, not now. No. We have a long while until that becomes like a thing we have to talk about. Not now. Please, not right now. This is one of those times, and we have a lot to talk about in this episode, and we'll have a lot to talk about this offseason. So apologies if we don't get into super specifics on certain players, because we have a long time to discuss Krejci's contracts and Rask's contracts. And, you know, this is one of those times when Bruins Twitter and Bruins fans in general are, again, sounding the alarm. They're pissed. It's extremes. Never want to see Rask back. Never want to see Krejci back. Never want to see this one back and that one back and blow the whole thing up. But there's one little big reaction that I'm kind of on board with. And it's none of those. None of those. I want Rask back. I want Krejci back. I think you think the same. And we'll get to that later. But there is one thing that I'm not fully opposed to. And it's the status of Don Sweeney as general manager. I think that is so. When I was looking at this series, I had a crazy thought last night. It like hit me like, your best thoughts at you like 2 a.m. when you're like, you feel like you opened up a new part of your brain. And I realized what were the 2 biggest issues in the series for the Bruins against the Islanders. Number 1 was no scoring after the top line. And number 2 was effectiveness and size and depth of your defense. And I said, I think I've seen that problem before with the Bruins a few times. And at some level, obviously it's on the players. Like, it's on the players. We both said this roster was better than 2019, should have went deeper, the whole 9 yards with that. But at some level, it does go upstairs to Sweeney. And I just look at, like, I actually don't put the offensive issues on Sweeney, because you went out and got Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar. Like, that should be more than enough. At some level, that's on those guys. That's on
and Craig Smith.
And Craig Smith.
Yeah.
Yes. And your third line, Jake DeBrusk is on your third line. Like, that should be fine. You should be totally fine with that. That's on the players. That is completely on the forwards. That is on them to produce. Sweeney got the right guys for that, those 4 lines. But when you look at D, you lose Chara and Krug last off season, and you really don't replace them with anything. You say we're going to play the kids, and that's fine. But you have an aging veteran core that you're trying to reboot. You're trying to get more chances at the cup. And even though they had a chance this year, when you now that the smoke is cleared, were they close to Tampa? Were they close to Colorado or Vegas? Were you really going to beat? No, probably not. Like, again, it's hockey, so anything can happen. And I'm a big fan of that aspect of hockey. That's kind of how the Islanders just beat you. But at the end of the day, not enough was done on defense. And then the drafting and the development is a whole nother thing. Like, that's well documented. So do you agree with that? Or do you think that, he should be sticking around?
Yeah. I mean, I think if there's a reason for it, it has to be looking forward and ahead and rebuilding this pipeline. Cause I think that's the most pressing issue. And that's why I think the Bruins are in kind of a tough spot this offseason. Like, I'm sure we're going to talk later in this pod about what's the best course ahead for this team, because they're kind of stuck at a crossroads between the rebuilding and the retooling. But your options are pretty limited because you have no young guy. There's some teams that blow it up and, if you look at, like, let's say the Capitals, right, and they blew it up, it's like, all right, well, they've got that McMichael kid who they drafted who like ripped up the AHL, who you're expecting to do well. Like there's other teams that if they, move forward, and even look at like Pittsburgh, their time's gonna be running out, but at least they've had guys like Marino or they signed, obviously Gensel's a guy who was a big part of like the last cup run they had, but they had younger pieces coming in that have supplemented that will make that transition easier, that a rebuild isn't, that it's a 2-3 years, hopefully, of, rebuilding and getting back to where you were, and all of a sudden you're right back in it. You look at the state of this team's pipeline of talent, and that's where it gets dour. And that's why if there's ever a reason to do it, it's because you've got no, are you looking ahead to next year? And, I think maybe going into this season, it was like, yeah, we'll see what Seneca has. Like we'll pencil him in, he'll go through some rough patches as all young players do, but by 2021, if we move on from Krejci, Coyle 2C, like Seneca 3C, you're all set. You ready for that? You confident putting Seneca in there? Are you confident next year rolling out Vakanainen or Saboro, the two guys who you couldn't trust in the playoffs, over Jared friggin' Tenorti? Like, is that, and that's not just, and I'm not doing that as like a rip on Tenorti, who I thought was a good waiver wire pickup for this team, but that's insane that this team that is in this win now, that is in this, cup contention win now window that they're in, that your decor is that barren in terms of younger players, that you have no guys to step up, that Tenorti's your best option. Like that's wild for this team. And obviously everyone will harken back to 2015 as expected. And yes,
in these situations, it's warranted.
Yes,
it's warranted.
Yes. But also, like, looking beyond that, like look at, Frederick over DeBrincat. Look at, Kaliev. Look at all these other younger guys that they've missed on over the years after that. Like, it's not like you have to be, getting A+ with every single draft, but you needed more guys to supplement along the lines that should be ready and contending. Like, how much more rope are we going to give guys like Zaboral and Vakanainen? And I understand that some defensemen take time to develop, but when are they coming? And if they coming, are they legitimate NHLers? Like, look at Tampa Bay, right? Like, that team, we'll talk all we want about the cap circumvention they've done. Warranted, yes. Shitty?
Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah. But, Dougie Hamilton has a thing to just state about it. But you know what Tampa Bay does well, along with being really smart with the cap and
what is it?
Loopholes, is they call up Ross Colton and these random dudes from like friggin' Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, who like come out of nowhere that I've never heard of before, like these 6th-round picks, and they perform in high pressure situations in the playoffs. And you're like, who the hell is this? And then, like, you never see them again, but they do their job when slotted in. Like, the Bruins don't have nearly that amount of depth and, potential in their core right now. Like, who you looking at next year that you expect to make like a big step forward, right? It's not like going from 2016 to 2017 where DeBrusk had a good year in Providence. Like, all right, like, we'll see how he does. Like, maybe is Lauko like your option for next year? I mean, he had a good year, but are you ready to roll? Is he your third line left winger, right? Are they going to sign John Beecher? And is John Beecher going to go right from Michigan to the NHL? Like, there's guys that maybe you want to wait on. Is, Mason Lohrei had a good year in the USHL, but also he was an overage kid and, beating on like 16, 17-year-olds. Like, I think he has talent, he has potential, but he's also ways away. He's going to go to Ohio State for at least, a couple of years, you'd imagine. So it's not like this guy's waiting in the wings for this team. So I think if you look at the biggest concern, and Sweeney has his benefits in terms of, signing guys well below probably what they're getting on the market, but that you do that to keep this window open and give yourself the room to add depth. And what killed you this series? Lack of depth, right? Like, you got nothing out of your bottom 6. The second line, I'm not ready to like completely bomb on them for like this season, because I thought there was a lot of good to take away from it, but they didn't help you in that series. You look at the decor other than McAvoy, like, you can't. You look at these other teams that have done well, and maybe Tampa Bay is an exception just of how well they've won, developed talent, sign great, bargain deals, trade, make the trades they need to make of like a guy like McDonough, obviously. But look at all these other teams that do well. Like the Blues, people talk about, like you have to follow the mold of them where they're a big physical team. You know what Blues also had? Depth.
Yeah.
Like Vince Dunn. If Vince Dunn was on this team, he'd be like a top pairing guy, and he was
He,
like
he would be with McAvoy in the top pair.
Yeah. Yeah, and like not like that. Just look at the rest of their lineup. Like they've got so much. Like all those teams that do well. Look at Vegas. Look at all these teams. They've got depth all across the lineup. And if you look at what the Bruins need to do, if you want to do the retooling, it's you've got a bunch of fires to put out because you've got to remake that bottom six, and you've got to add at least, I think, 2 guys on that decor. Like you've got a whole lot of holes to fix.
And this is what should piss you off as a Bruins fan for the listeners. Like, think of how much better the Bruins would be if they hit on the 15 draft, or as you mentioned, the Frederick thing. If you just drafted better, if you develop, think of all the young forwards that have come through the Bruins system: DeBrusk, Heinen, Bjork, Donato. I mean, you can go down the list. And it's
Peter Solaric, he was robbed.
Peter Solaric was robbed.
Lining up the IHF.
It's the same. It's the same song and dance with each guy. We thought DeBrusk would be different. It's turned out he's not. We know probably DeBrusk is not coming back, and you're not getting much for him, by the way, in a trade because his value is so low. So that's another thing. You don't even get a lot for him. Whereas a year ago, you would have got something legit for DeBrusk. Now you're going to probably get not much of anything unless he's part of a package. So that's what should piss you off. Is the drafting and the development of this team is bad. It's not good. And I tweeted out the first round picks this morning. I know first round picks are tough because, hindsight's always 2020 with them. And, again, there's people who are paid to watch these potential first round picks who should know. So there is also that, but you can play that game. But another thing is you just look at the draft picks. Like you look at the 2006 draft and that had Kessel, Lucic, Marchand. That's a big part of why you won the cup in 2011, right? Like you can draw all that back right there. But you look at the Bruins and you look at 2015, 16, 17, 18. You go down the list of Sweeney's drafts. And aside from McAvoy and Carlo, I'm not seeing anything that's severely benefiting your team right now that's picked by Sweeney, unless I'm forgetting someone, but I don't think I am. So those are your guys. And again, like it just goes back to you have to draft well because that's how you get depth. And the problem is the Bruins have a ton of 5th and 6th defensemen. The Bruins have a ton of bottom 6 guys, but they don't have, again, on a contending team, is Mike Riley a top 4 defenseman?
No. He should be a third pairing guy.
That's a third pairing guy. You could even make the case now. Grzelcyk with McAvoy is great, but if you have Grzelcyk, being the leader on his own pairing, would be a third pairing defenseman as well. And again, he's younger. He will develop. I think we're both high on Grzelcyk. I know obviously he was bad in Game 6, but he's not someone I'm particularly worried about. But again, and you mentioned the Studnicka thing. So the future core of the Bruins looks to be Marchand when he's a little older, Pastrnak, McAvoy, Carlo, Grzelcyk, Swayman. Do you know what's not in that? Do you know what position is not accounted for in that? Maybe the most important position on the ice, center. There's no centers in there. So the days of your 1-2 punch of Bergeron and Krejci are, who's that going to be supplemented by? Coyle and Studnicka, Beecher, who you don't really know about, Frederick, who they don't even project to be a top 6 guy. Like Frederick is not projected to be, he's projected to be an enforcer pretty much, an energy third line guy. And you picked him in the first over a guy like DeBrincat. So again, that goes back to Sweeney. And again, it's the 2015 thing is the easiest one because it was obvious in the series because Beauvillier was picked in the 2015 draft too, right? I believe. I
want to say so.
I thought I heard that somewhere because I don't remember.
Yeah,
His name's
2015.
Yep, 2015. There's another one. So Beauvillier, and then obviously Barzal. And again, if you have Barzal or you have Shabbat or you have Kyle Connor, I hate to say it, but you're probably winning the cup in 2019, and you probably get past the Lightning at some point, maybe with some other draft picks. And I know that the Lightning are good.
And it's not even like one of those guys too, where it's like a legit top pairing guy or like a top 6 guy. Like you need like a Travis Konechny and you maybe win. You lost a Game 7. Like you need a dude like that. You need a guy who's like a 2020 guy, and you're in a much better spot.
And that's the thing, and that's why it's hard not to look upstairs with this issue. Because again, Cassidy's dealing with the hands he's dealt. Did Cassidy have a great series? God, no, not a good series at all for him. But that doesn't mean he should be fired, because this is really one of the first strikes on him, and we're 4 or 5 years in with him. So no, I don't think Cassidy should be gone for this. I don't think the Cassidy is the issue here. I think the issue here is bad drafting and development, and they're not addressing needs that they actually really need. And even, I mean, it's funny, at the deadline, we both thought it was enough because it looked to be enough what they did. And I think it still was. I think Sweeney did a good job at the deadline. The problem was the other problem that it wasn't addressed before. It wasn't addressed before. So there's a lot with the Sweeney stuff. And even Bruins Stats on Twitter last night was going off saying that
in
really needs
rare
to be
form. It was cracking his knuckles before that game even was over.
Well, he tweeted right before this, like, rant upcoming. And I'm like, I wonder what it's going to be.
I think it was percolating was the verb used there. Rant percolating.
Yes, rant percolating. And he mentioned an interesting thing here. Sweeney inherited a roster with great talent in their prime. Pastrnak at 19, Dougie Hamilton at 21, Riley Smith at 24, Krug at 24, Marchand 27, Rask 28, Krejci 29, Louis Eriksson 30, and Patrice Bergeron at 30. And again, you see that roster. I mean, obviously Louis Eriksson was Louis Eriksson, but the rest of that, I mean, if you could have found a way, I know Dougie Hamilton was a bit off, but again, like, you look at that, like, you trade Dougie and you get, basically that was turned into Pastrnak. Which pick was Dougie traded for of the 2015 draft? Was it the 15th overall pick? He was
traded for I want to say it was
it was 15th, I think.
It's all like, I think I've blocked it out of my head now that
so
I have to
let's say it's Senyshyn.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a 15th pick. So you basically turn Pastrnak and that crew into Pastrnak, Senyshyn, Jimmy Hayes, nobody.
It was the 15th pick. It was Senyshyn. Yeah.
Krug's gone, Marchand, Rask, Krejci, Eriksson left for nothing, and Bergeron. So you kind of blew that. So, and again, and it's funny. I was thinking this morning, like, if you looked at it, if you were totally removed from the situation and you looked at, if I handed you a piece of paper and said, this is what this general manager has done in his 5 or 6 years with the team, and then I didn't tell you what the team did, how the team did, or where they were, they'd probably say, oh, that team probably isn't that good. They're probably struggling. And they're not, which is wild. Like, it is incredible. And that goes to show you how strong that core is, that they can get them time and time again. But that's why these problems keep popping up. That's why it keeps happening. So that is the Sweeney minute. I imagine we'll have more on him. I don't see them firing him. I don't. But I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't. I think that would create some change. This organization needs new eyes, especially in the land of player development. So I think that is not a bad move. That's a big move that would shake things up, but I don't see him doing it. I don't, just because they've had success. They went to a cup. You can always make that argument. They've been to the playoffs these years. But again, that's 3 out of 4 years out in the second round. And again, when you lose to the Lightning, that's one thing. But when you lose to the Islanders, who, by the way, I've been noticing in the YouTube comment sections, people have been pissed. Islanders fans are pissed that we're not giving them respect.
I was like, I don't know how they're finding these video recaps. That.
How did you guys find this?
Yeah.
But whatever, fine. Get on us for not respecting the Islanders. But the Islanders are only there because of Barry Trotz. Like that is it. It's systems. That's the team. And you know what? Respect. I respect that. I respect the hell out of it. Like, go for it. But yeah, on paper, the Bruins are way better.
You just got yourself like 4 comments from a pissed off guy from like Port Jeff who's going to start attacking us on this video now on YouTube. But
he's coming to Boston to confront us. But no, I just, and also the other thing was in 2019, you got to the Cup final because the road was easy. You didn't get there because the lineup was insane. You got there because you had to play the Maple Leafs, the Blue Jackets, and the Hurricanes instead of the Lightning. Or the Islanders, actually. The Islanders were the team that lost to the Hurricanes, or the Caps. So you lucked out in 2019. And again, if every time they lose a playoff series, it enhances how bad 2015 was and how bad 2019 was. Because, oh boy. And I know today's super negative for people, but also I feel like when the Bruins go out like this, it is good to have these episodes where you just kind of like look at everything. And I think people want to hear this. I don't think people would be like, oh, they're going to come back and then, they got it in them. I could tell you, Bergeron and Marchand, they're going to do it at some point. Like, no, this has to happen. These conversations have to happen. So another thing that a lot of people want to do is blow the whole thing up, blow it up, trade everybody, rebuild. That sucks. That's no fun. I disagree with that. I know you disagree with that. You were telling me before you kind of have a little plan, the Conor Ryan plan of how to potentially fix some holes. So I'll let you take the floor on that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the weighing the costs of rebuild versus retooling, I think you have to be cognizant of, you look at the state of this team's prospect system, and unless you're like, one, if you're rebuilding, who are you trading and what value you're going to get? Like, I understand if you want to move DeBrusque or something, but is it, are you moving like your top line? Like, are you like, who has key trade value on this team? That isn't like, all your star players are all like 33 and up, and you're not moving McAvoy and Pasternak. You're not moving Swayman. So like, you can get like pieces back that you can mix and match to shore up what you should be focusing on, which is adding depth to, your bottom six, to your decor especially. But it's not like you can do a fire sale and you're trading guys and getting back multiple first round picks, or like a younger player that you hope is going to be good in 2-3 years. Because the fact of the matter is, if you blow this team up with this prospect pool like it is right now, barring something wild happening, which, I mean, it can happen. Look at like Montreal. You thought that team was gonna like be in the crapper, and all of a sudden they're a Final Four team, which might be just more of an indictment on the North Division. But regardless, this isn't a 2-3 year rebuild if you blow it up. This is like a nuclear winter. Like,
Also,
this is not ending the Bergeron era. You are like putting at risk like them not being competitive until Pasternak and McAvoy are like 28. like we're talking multiple. That's what you have to be like. This isn't like McAvoy and Pasta are 19 and 20, and like you retool on the fly like 2014, 2015, 16, and you have another crack at it when like Bergeron's 30, Krejci's 31, like something like that. That's not the case. Like, you are going to be in the shitter for a long time if you blow it up. So you only kind of really have one option, which I think is just retooling, and doing what you can to kind of round out this depth. Because again, that I pitched that not as a trying to spin it as sunshine and rainbows, right? I pitch it as like in Looney Tunes when Wile E. Coyote runs off the fucking cliff and he keeps on running because he knows if he looks down he's gonna fall. That's what this is. But that's what this has. This is the hole you dug for yourself. If you rebuild, you're dooming this franchise to a rough stretch unless you hit on all these first round picks that you might acquire. Which also, another thing is, not like you can also just sell off guys, because don't forget, we're in a flat cap.
Also, the other thing is, you mentioned the first round picks. Do you trust this team?
Yes,
to make multiple first round picks? Like, do you really trust? Let's say they dealt Pasternak tomorrow and they got 2 first round picks and like 2 prospects. Do you trust this crew to hit on those first round picks and to also have those prospects be good and actually develop them? No, you don't. You don't trust them to do that, which is all the more reason why I think there needs to be change at the top. But continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the only option you really have is run it back, and you have to prioritize with hopefully the cap savings you get, whether it's, I'm sure we'll discuss down the road of, Krejci or Rask, what have you. If they're back, they're going to be signing for less. They're not signing for $7 million. So you save some money there. I think, Bruins fans probably have a bad taste in their mouth how the series ended, but if Hall is back and willing to sign for good market value, I think you need to have him back. If he leaves, unless he signs somewhere for like $8 million per year, then you go, all right, well, he seemed to like it here, but I guess he want to get paid more. So at that point, you kind of,
he went to the playoffs and said, I don't really like the playoffs. This is not
fun. But ideally you want him back, because if you don't, you're back in the same spot you've been in for years, which is that second line is now completely off the rails again. But yeah, I think for the priority now is you have to run it back. You have to bring back those guys on affordable deals. Bruins are in at least an advantageous spot in terms of how much cap space they have, in a time where not a lot of teams do. And again, who knows, maybe the Steven Stamkos has like appendicitis and he's out until April again next year, and the Lightning circumvent the cap once more. But there's still not a lot of teams there's quite a few teams that are facing tough decisions next year. Islanders are in a tough spot with some guys that are RFAs. The Avalanche are probably going to have to move out guys. Vegas, sealed their fate by signing Petraglia to that contract. So they have to, there's a lot of teams that are going to be in cap crunch. You've got money to not only bring back Rask and Krejci for, short-term gains that are going to be for cheaper than what you signed them for before. But you also have at least, probably around 15 million to work with without, buyouts or moving other guys, which are going to happen to retool the bottom six. You need, I think you need at least a complete overhaul of that bottom six. I don't think Coyle's moving anywhere with that contract, but whether it's, I don't know, we'll spitball like, look at like what Tampa has with like Coleman or Goudreau. You need to find guys like that. You need to find like a guy in Coleman who's defensively responsible, but can also pot you 15 goals a season. You need that. You need like a Marcus Johansson. You need to completely overhaul that fourth line with, tougher guys to play against. And, I hate going down the narrative of that, but it's true. Like you need what you face in these last two rounds. Like the identity line, as they call them, with like Zizekas or Clutterbuck or Martin, or even look at Capitals. Their best line in that series was Dowd and Hathaway, right?
Hathaway,
like you need impact guys like that, guys that are going to mix it up. I mean, pain in the ass to play against. They can also skate well, like guys that are, are going to change the momentum of a game with a shift, which I think you need on that fourth line. And then especially, the decor. I think you need at least two guys. Like, you have to either trade for a legitimate top four defenseman, which is easier said than done. But whether that's, I don't think Seth Jones, considering what contract he's going to get, is a viable option. But like, I don't know if you kick the tires on Hannafin again, who had a pretty good year with Calgary. And he's also from Mass. So, I'm just throwing out names. We'll dive deeper into it, but you need to get like a guy like that. And then another bigger body further down in the depth chart that you can rely on, whether that's a Savad or Alexiak or even like a John Merrill, who I don't think a lot of people know about, but he's one of those guys that you may not, he's limited offensively, but he'll give you 18 minutes a night. His D zone numbers are great and he shuts down stuff and you can trust him out there. Like that's what you need. You need multiple things on this team, but you also just need guys that you can plug in there that are going to do their job, that are big and are going to be tough to get inside against. And even I think having a John Merrill makes a world of difference in this series, right? So there's multiple fires you got to put out, but I think it's the only option they have is to retool and round out some depth, because the other options aren't that appealing. And the one I've mapped out is, again, run off that cliff until you finally have to look down. Not great, but.
Well, I think when you mentioned John M's on the back end, Bruins fans kind of cringe a little. The PTSD kind of kicks in. But again, you wouldn't have to do any of this stuff if you drafted better. If you developed your own guys, you wouldn't have to do these things, or at least to this extent where you need such a drastic overhaul of the whole thing, because you do. Again, this series, I have the numbers right here. Pasternak, Marchand, 9 points each. Krejci and McAvoy, 7 apiece. Bergeron, 5. After that, nothing. You got 2 points from Hall, 2 points from Riley, 1 from Coyle. Richie and Kuhlman, they each had 1. Smith had 2. Grzelcyk had 1. Those were your point getters in the series. That is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 point getters, and only 5 had more than 2 points. So yeah, not great at all. And that just goes to show everything you said, to retool. And also the other thing is you're saving money in net, because Halak won't be back. So it'll be Rask making, I know people have a bad taste in their mouth over Rask. By the way, he didn't play well in game 6. Like, by the way, no, he didn't play well in game 6. He didn't play well in game 5. We're not going to sit here and, pretend and spin this. I know I'd said on Twitter, like, oh, Bruins defense has not been good to Rask this series. And people were like, you're defending him. It's like, no. Rask did not play well in games 5 and 6. And you needed him to play well in both games, especially because he's out there. Even though I know he's hurt, he's still out there. So we expect him to play well, especially considering he'd played hurt for the whole playoffs and played great up until game 5. But the defense in front of him did not do many favors either. So both things can be true. You can have two things that are true. It's not one or the other. Both things can be true. But still, you need Rask back. Because, again, Swayman, Vladar, again, Swayman looked great in the second half of the year. There's a lot of risk, though. That's kind of just like playing the kids on D, because that is a huge, huge risk. And by the way, Swayman has a ton of value, and he's super. I think he's going to be, super in net and all that stuff. But you need him to kind of have the thing Rask had when he first started out, where you sort of slowly get in there and you get more and more reps until you're ready. I don't think Swayman's quite ready yet to be the full-time starter, especially with Vladar behind him, who's another one who you don't know what you have in. So again, that's a Capitals situation. If you want to be like the Capitals and be kind of very shaky in net and risky and not know what you have, but be my guest. But it is not worth it, because when you can have Rask and Swayman making a combined like 6.5 million. I mean, I forget what Swayman's making, but if you can put those together, and that's way less than the 10 that Halak and Rask are making right now. So you're saving money there. So there's ways you can save money and add as well. And I don't think that's so far fetched. But these are all questions we'll get to more and more in the offseason. Do you have any other thoughts? I feel like we're forgetting something, but maybe we're not. Because we've discussed so in depth on Sweeney. We went in on what they need to do this offseason. Is there anything we're forgetting?
I mean, I think that more or less sums up, it's tough to pitch a clear solution, because I don't think there is one. Like maybe you say, you know what, accept the bitter chill of a nuclear winter and just get it over with now and rip off the Band-Aid. But I don't think it's the right call to do that until you either have new eyes looking over the retool or the rebuild rather, with reevaluating scouting and identifying players that are going to be part of the next wave of this Bruins team, or I think just the overall the best bet you have right now with this core, at least still in place, is you have to run it back and add more depth and hope that puts you over the top. I mean, it's a crapshoot again. 30 of 31 teams are going to look back and be, what went wrong? What do we have to fix? It's the same thing happens every single year. It's going to be 31 next year that are going to be looking at what just went wrong. But for the Bruins, I think as long as you've got this core in place, you got to just make the most of it, because you're not going to get potentially, 3 or 4 Hall of Famers all together on a team on affordable deals. It doesn't come very often. So it's not ideal. It's going to mean in 2027, we're going to have some dour podcast to record, Evan, but
2027.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about the weather or something, and for like most of those podcasts instead of what's on the ice. But
it can't be worse than when we were doing it during the COVID times and there was nothing.
Yeah. So, not ideal, but I think that's the best bet you have, and you do what you can to round out the rest of your roster and get another crack at it next year. And you hope that, whether it's, again, don't want to put names in, but you hope a Coleman or a legitimate top 4D and other depth guys give you enough depth, because that's what you need. It's not just, getting Hall, which was a great pickup at the deadline, and being like, all right, top 6 is ready to go. You need 4 lines rolling. You need a decoy that's tough to get inside. I mean, David Savard, I think, would be the top pairing guy on the Bruins. He's like a third pairing guy on Tampa. That's wild. Yeah. So that's what you need.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and this is one leftover thought I have before we go, and we'll get into this, I think, deeper in the offseason. But what sucks is Brad Marchand is the MVP of the Bruins right now. I think he's been that way for quite a while. McAvoy's close, but Marchand for the entire season, and especially in game 6, obviously with the 2 goals, has been money. He's 33. Do you really want to keep wasting this, one of the best players in the NHL, maybe the best left winger in the NHL's prime like this? I'm not saying it's a waste, but he said it Wednesday night after the game. Like, as you get older, you realize you don't have many opportunities at this, and it's hard to get back here. And they continuously are falling short. And continuously, he's the one stepping up. Now, I know game 7 against the Blues, obviously not great. And that whole series against the Blues, he really wasn't that great. But other than that, incredible. And I think that's another thing, like the way he plays, the shiftiness, the puck protection, that stuff goes away with age. That stuff goes away as he gets older. And it will, and it's unfortunate, but it happens. That's how people age. That's how it works. We're young, we're quick and shifty. We Connor, you know, I can do that stuff. But as he gets older, and maybe as we get older, that stuff goes away. And I think, again, wasting the prime of him with wanting to play kids on the back end like Lozon and Zaboral and Vakanainen and Clifton. This is what happens. This is what happens. And like, when you look at the playing the kids narrative, what did you find out about that this year? It doesn't work. Zaboral and Vakanainen are not ready to be NHL regulars. Jeremy Lozon is a borderline 5th or 6th defenseman. Connor Clifton, I would say is probably a solid bet as a 5th or 6th defenseman in the NHL. He's young, could get a lot better, but for right now, that's where he is. So again, on the back end, you got Grzelcyk, McAvoy, Carlo, and then everybody else. And then Carlo's got injury issues. And so you have this whole big thing. So there's a lot to pick through, and there's a lot that they have to do. this off season. But that is our, I guess, our last episode of the season, but we will still have episodes every week. This isn't the end, obviously. Before I let you go, Connor, what can the people look forward to at BSJ?
Yeah, we're going to be kind of mapping out what we talked about today in terms of what's the best course going forward. And obviously leading up to the draft and free agency, all that stuff, we're going to have stuff out pretty much every day during this whole off season, this whole summer, breaking down contracts, potential guys that to pick up. I think as you know, everyone focuses on the big names, every free agency. Every year there's always plenty of Craig Smiths around or other guys that kind of fly under the radar that end up being good value pickups. So Bruins have the work cut out for them, but there's at least should be plenty of appealing options out there, especially in this flat cap era. So it's going to be a interesting offseason to say the least, but we'll have you covered over at BSJ every step of the way. Again, thank you for everyone who has listened to this podcast all season long. Shouts to Evan and his crew for doing a fantastic job as always. And thank you guys for all the support. We're going to have plenty of stuff the whole rest of the summer, so we're looking forward to it.
I'm embarrassed I didn't start off with a thank you. I feel like that should have been the first thing we both said. But yes, thank you to everyone for the whole season. It's always fun doing this. Thank you to you, Connor, and the BSJ crew, and to the fans. Obviously, you guys make this all possible, whether it be listening to podcasts, watching, subscriing to BSJ, or reading our stuff. I mean, seriously, this is so fun. And it's always fun. It's always a labor of love to do this stuff. But yeah, that is it. That is all. The Bruins should, though. They should see you talk about the big fish. Sign Ovechkin, trade for Crosby, trade for Eichel. Like that, the Bleacher Report article for Crosby, and then, trade DeBrusk back in 9 and a second round pick to the Sabres to get Eichel. So boom, there's the offseason. You fixed that.
There goes my column. There goes my column for tomorrow. Thanks a lot, Evan.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. That's just fixing the Bruins 101. But at any rate, that is Poke the Bear episode 47. Connor Ryan, Evan Marinofski. You Poke the Bear listeners, have a great rest of your day.